Ever feel like this whole sin thing is a little outdated? You know, like fire and brimstone sermons? We're going to try to tackle that today. We're diving into sin and sacrifice and atonement. It's a long history. And trust me, way more interesting than Sunday school.
Yeah, what we're going to be looking at is how these ancient practices, some would probably freak people out today, were important in making civilization, well, civilized.
Right. We're looking at paper 89 of the Urantia book. It's got a lot to say about how early humans went from just trying to survive to this whole system of sin and trying to make things right.
Yeah, think about it. Back then, danger was everywhere. You know, storms, wild animals, who knows what else. Death was just part of life. That's where this idea of taboo comes in.
Okay, taboo, like off limits.
Yeah.
Not some divine rule book, right?
Right. Early humans, they noticed if they did certain things, bad stuff seemed to happen. But it wasn't about morality. It was about, like, not making the spirits mad. Staying on their good side.
So less about right and wrong, more about, like, safe or sorry.
Exactly. Survival, plain and simple. Follow the rules. Spirits are happy. You see the sunrise. It was a big deal.
And here's where it gets interesting. The Urantia book, it says these early taboos, all about fear and superstition, they actually led to the idea of sin.
Think about it. Death. It was a total mystery back then. But once you have these taboos, these rules that could make the spirits angry, suddenly you've got an explanation for why bad stuff happens. You broke the rules, and bam, disease, disaster.
Blaming the spirits, high stakes, for sure.
And then these stories pop up, like the Garden of Eden. The Urantia book says it was one of many, all about a lost golden age.
Yeah, the good old days.
Right, and those stories passed down, they made this idea solid, humans messed up, broke an agreement, and now we're paying for it.
Okay, so we've got early humans scared, trying to figure things out. They create taboos, right? Don't make the spirits mad. Then that turns into sin, right and wrong, actions and consequences. But how do they go from avoiding bad luck to thinking they can fix things? Enter sacrifices.
And let me tell you, that's where things get intense. So we left off with early humans in a pretty sticky situation trying to make things right.
Yeah, those rituals. Glad I missed those. But how do they get from dodging bad luck to thinking they could, I don't know, fix things with sacrifices?
It's interesting, actually. It shows how much humans need to understand things, you know? Cause and effect. Got to find a solution even when they're scared. The Urantia book, it says those first sacrifices, they were all about keeping those spirits happy. Like, get some control back in a world gone haywire.
Here you go. Spirits, take this. Maybe lay off a bit.
Exactly. And it wasn't random either. It gets pretty organized. The Urantia book talks about different offerings, different purposes. You got gift sacrifices, basically saying thanks, good harvest, that kind of thing.
Like a cosmic thank you card.
Yeah.
But then there's the other kind, right? When you messed up, debt sacrifices.
Right. You did something wrong, got to make it right. And this is where things get really big. Substitution. Instead of sacrificing, say, your firstborn, maybe offer an animal. Still a big deal, but you get the idea.
Wow. What a choice, though. Can't even imagine.
And that's why the Urantia book makes a big deal about Moses. 10 Commandments, sure, but he also really pushed back against human sacrifice.
Right. Thou shalt not kill, yeah. Kind of important. But how do you change everyone's minds like that? I mean, it had been going on forever.
Yeah, not easy. The Urantia book says Moses, he went for a different relationship with the divine, not just making them happy, but covenants, agreements.
Okay, hold on. Appease the gods, I get it. Covenants. Explain that.
It's a change in thinking. Appeasement is fear. Don't make them mad. A covenant, that's two-way. We do this, you do that.
So less begging, more like a deal.
Exactly. It's like human society growing up, you know? Contracts, agreements, and that way of thinking. It even affected how they prayed.
Wait, are you saying prayer, like personal prayer? That was bargaining too.
Oh, sort of. Those early prayers, they weren't just thanks for everything. They were asking for stuff. Help me win this battle. Don't let my kid die. Specific.
I'll do this if you do that. Cosmic barter system.
You got it. And to sweeten the deal, promises, big temples, total devotion. It's all in there.
Okay, so smarter humans, smarter deals with the divine. But this whole bargaining thing, it feels kind of cold, doesn't it? Where's the, I don't know, the heart?
That's a great point. And that takes us to another big shift the Urantia book talks about. Going from blood sacrifices to more symbolic stuff. Remember the Mother of God cult?
Yeah, the ones who swapped bodies for cakes and wine. Still weird, but hey, an improvement.
Exactly. And guess what? Those are the same things in the Christian Eucharist, right? Which also came from older, more literal ideas of sacrifice.
So even with progress, you still see traces of the old ways, like trying to modernize a recipe but keep some of the original flavor.
That's a good way to put it. And as we get further into what the Urantia book says about sin and redemption, you'll see this back and forth, old and new, keeps shaping how we see spirituality even today.
It's kind of wild when you think about it. We're talking blood sacrifices, ancient rituals, trying to stay on the good side of the gods. And here we are, 21st century, still talking about sin. It's like this ancient program running under the hood of modern life.
Makes you wonder, right? Like, how far have we really come, or are we still carrying those old ideas around?
Especially with the Urantia book's take on sin, which is, let's face it, not your average sermon material.
Not even close. It wants us to think about sin differently. Not rules, but loyalty.
Loyalty. To who or what? Don't hold out on me.
To deity, it says. The Urantia book says real sin, it's not about breaking rules, it's turning away from, like, the divine will. Like, we've all got this compass inside, right and wrong, but it's connected to something bigger.
So not about eating shellfish on Tuesdays or whatever. It's about being true to yourself, that little voice saying, do the right thing.
Yeah. And just look, nobody's perfect. It gets that. There's degrees of loyalty, full-on devotion to, well, total rebellion. Lots of gray areas in there.
So good to know. Don't have to be a saint then.
Hmm.
But if it's all about our own compass, how do we get forgiveness? Good deeds. Apologize to the universe.
And here's another twist. The Urantia book, it says forgiveness, it's not something you earn. It's about restoring that connection inside, getting back in sync.
So less about begging for forgiveness, more about fixing that connection, getting back on track with those big, important values.
Right. It's like you mess up, we all do, but then you try to fix it, get back on course. And the Urantia book says, when you do that, forgiveness just happens.
So instead of beating ourselves up, it's about growing, being the best version of ourselves, connected to that, I don't know, that spark.
Exactly. We make mistakes, sure, but we can always find our way back to that wholeness, that peace. It's about aligning with that divine part of ourselves.
Which takes us back to that question from before. Our ideas about sin, atonement, they've changed so much. What do we do inevitably that people in the future will be like, what were they thinking?
It's humbling, right? We're all part of this big story, this evolution of how we think. What we think is fine today, someone else might totally judge later.
It's like that saying, I think it was Voltaire, judge a man by his questions, not his answers. Maybe it's not about having it all figured out, but asking the tough questions, you know. Being open to the idea that our ideas about sin, forgiveness, even God, maybe they're not done changing yet.
Couldn't said it better myself. Keep searching, keep asking, keep digging into the big questions. Until next time, everyone.